Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and your other host this week is the OG, Palpa Kelly. Welcome back, Palpa Kelly.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
If this is your very first episode of the show, the way we format it is we go through this week's news, and then we head into the Broket Block, which is the more personal side of the show, what Palpa Kelly and I have been up to since you last heard us. So let's jump right in and explore sector number 549. There was a Nintendo Direct, the latest one, and we're not going to cover every game on there because a lot of them were indie titles, smaller titles, a lot of stuff that honestly a lot of people did not care for, but there were some pretty big hitters here. This first one is to coincide with the game's 20th anniversary. Nintendo has released a remaster of Metroid Prime. The first title launched back in November of 2002 on the Nintendo GameCube. And although it was first announced back in 2017, the long-awaited Metroid Prime 4 is still in development at Retro Studios. No word yet, though, on if Prime 2 and 3 will also be getting remastered.
5 years waiting for Metroid Prime 4? What are they doing? Taking a nap over there? Watching TikToks?
There's a little COVID that happened, which I'm sure...
Nah. Is this something that you're excited for, the remake of Metroid Prime?
I did buy Prime back when it released, and I did not beat it. It was more difficult for... Honestly, it was my very first Metroid game, was Metroid Prime. I had not played... I know I had played Fusion, but I can't remember if that was right before or right after I played Prime. I beat Fusion. I thought it was excellent. But Prime, I could not beat. I just kept getting stuck in it, and it wasn't really my kind of game. It's a dungeon explorer, and it's its own thing now, where they call it Metroidvania as the type of genre, just like Castlevania. And Castlevania was not a title I played either. So it was an all-new experience, basically Metroid in 3D, with first-person shooting, which was very controversial at that time. I don't know if you recall or cared at that point, but the fact that they made Metroid a first-person shooter was a huge deal with gamers. And even during a time when you didn't have Twitter like you have today, or I don't even know if it existed back then, but that would have been something where people would have probably called for some kind of boycott.
No, I never played any of the Metroid games. I think it was just a little bit before my time when I started gaming. Plus, I just like the Pokemons and the Harvest Moons, let's be real. But I have watched you play a few of them. They look okay, but again, not a type of game. Really, and people are probably going to boycott me now. If the game is too hard, I don't play.
No, that's how Scott plays.
I use games to kind of escape what's going on, and if I'm really getting frustrated at it, then it's not really helping me escape. It's just adding to my stress.
You would not like the Demon Souls or any of those games. Those are actually made to be extremely difficult. Even Hades, I don't know if it's difficult, but they're the same makers as Transistor.
Okay.
And the whole idea is you make it through each god or goddess and try to defeat them or try to escape Hades. That's the end game. And each time you die, you still retain your experience and your weapons, but you progress a little bit further. But the idea is you die tons of times and Hades never dies or whatever. He just gets reborn. Or maybe it's not Hades. Hades is who you're fighting. He's like Hades' kid or something. But by the end of it, you will have died so much, but you have so much experience, you know how to beat the bosses that you breeze through it on one life.
Now, the only way I would play that game is if you have to romance all these people. That's how you win.
So you can romance people in the game, but not like in a way where you then couple with them.
No.
They actually become friendly with you and they give you stuff.
No, that's boring.
Kind of like Harvest Moon, I guess.
Yeah, but you can like actually fall in love and get married in Harvest Moon.
True. Like they come and live with you?
Yes.
Everything?
Yeah, you get like a bigger bed and everything. Oh, I think you just get a second bed. I don't remember.
What is this, the Brady Bunch or whatever?
Sure. It's Harvest Moon. So if they added that to that game, then I would play it. But no, that just sounds boring. Like you literally start from the beginning every single time with the experience that you have. Why? I don't understand.
People like it though.
Okay.
I've never played it. And I love the makers of Transistor. I think they're great.
Right.
I really like that game, but Hades is not, obviously we're not gaming a whole lot these days, but that probably would have been a day one purchase for me. It also it has a great soundtrack, but it doesn't have Ashley Burr, I forgot her last name, but from the Transistor game, she does one song in it and that's about it. Same composer, which is why the soundtrack is great. but it's not very vocalistic like
Mhm.
Transistor.
Well, maybe someday you can play it and I'll watch you, but not about it. Not for me.
Do you know who people romance Metroid with?
Who? Do I
Halo
wanna know?
himself.
Really?
Because they both have armor.
Well,
And
but they're like completely different franchises. I don't
Yeah, of course.
understand. That's too much. I don't know.
Imagine the power couple
I
they would be,
just-
though.
Like, I would feel like Metroid and Mario make more sense.
If someone's smaller, she'd go for the smaller guys.
Yeah. She, like, kind of, I'm thinking of Wreck-It Ralph. Remember there was that Metroid-like lady and she went with Fix-It Felix, who was
Right.
just like this little wimpy guy. That's what I see happening.
And who would Halo be with?
I don't know enough about Xbox. I don't know.
We got to change that.
Okay, you're
learn
right.
more about
right.
this on Microsoft.
Quality Xbox.
That's
yes.
right, Microsoft household here.
Blah blah. Xbox. Microsoft.
Last thing I'll say on Metroid is that I did beat number 3, and it was awesome. The only Metroid game I beat from that Prime era, and I won't be playing 4, but I am excited for those that do want to see it. I don't want to, I could call out who it is, but there is someone who I know who's a friend that back when the Metroid, it was like a teamwork game. It changed the franchise development of it. I think it was when they announced that Metroid soccer-like game on the DS or 3DS at the time. And this friend was telling me, I don't understand why they're changing so much of this game. They're changing the core of Metroid, whereas in Prime, it was still at its core a Metroid game, just in 3D. But to change it completely into this soccer thing or this weird 4-player co-op thing, it's just, it doesn't make any sense. And then within the next sentence, we started talking about Star Fox Zero because they had announced that in that same E3 or Nintendo Direct. And he was like, it looks just like Star Fox 64. Like they could have at least done something different. And I'm like, do you not realize what you just did here?
So because you like it, it can't change.
It's gamers are so weird. They don't realize they're contradicting themselves.
Right.
And that's one of my favorite memories. Like I will still remember that and I'll bring that up. Maybe one day I'll say who it is. And I might have already on this podcast, but we'll see. Another franchise that people are very near and dear to is The Legend of Zelda and Tears of the Kingdom have now gotten the price tag of $70
Oof.
for physical copies. And previously they were up for pre-order for $60. Even the digital copies, just to be clear, are $70 as well. And that makes it the first Nintendo game ever to hit that $70 threshold in the last couple of generations, at least. Obviously, you and I may remember the N64 days at Toys R Us. Games were $80 sometimes, $90 for certain PlayStation games. Not even collectible type of stuff. This was just standard pricing for some of these retailers. But we're getting $70 for Tears of the Kingdom. In an interview with Game Informer, a representative from Nintendo addressed the price tag and the potential $70 for future titles and said, quote, "We determined the suggested retail price for any Nintendo product on a case-by-case basis," end quote.
Translation, they're all going to be 70 now.
Just wait till they're $80.
Just wait till they're
just
80 or
Stan
90.
Lee.
The reality is, and it is horrible, but it is just the truth, is everything is expensive now. Everything is more expensive than it was, than we remember, especially for a very nostalgic game like this. Somebody's going to be looking at that $70 price tag and be like, oh, well, I remember when it was this much. Well, yeah, absolutely. But all the technology, all the time, all the things that go into it, and realistically where the market is at, it makes sense to me. Do I like it? No. Am I getting this game? Also no. But it makes sense. And I do remember, like you were saying, like the $100 games, right? $90, $80. It used to be very expensive to be a gamer, especially when you had to purchase so many things and you really didn't get that much gameplay out of it. So do I think that this is probably hours and hours and hours worth of gameplay? Absolutely. So the $70 will be worth it.
Well, that'll be the standard because Xbox and PlayStation have already raised some of their future titles to $70. They had announced a Call of Duty game that's going to go up to $70 as well. So that's going to be, I think, AAA titles. That'll be the standard. And then eventually they'll make all games $70 as people get used to it. And honestly, I haven't seen a lot of bitching from gamers. There's been a little bit of it, but not this uproar. Like even when I was working at GameStop when games went from $50 to $60, and that was kind of a big deal, but I heard more uproar then than now for $70. There were a few years there in my last couple of years at GameStop where we were anticipating Maybe they'll bring it up to $64.99. Maybe one day they're going to be $70. And especially with the days of DLC, if you guys don't want DLC, then the games are going to cost a little bit more. And we were thinking they should at that point even, because $60 is not a big deal for a lot of gamers. And now with 70, it's gonna be pretty quick before next thing you know, they're gonna be $75 to $80 just based on the non-reaction from gamers.
Yeah, and I think we're just in this space now where people just anticipate that, and truthfully, that disposable income that our generation has, that's what we put into things that escape that I was talking about earlier, right? Things that we can do that help us kind of get our mind off of things, and that's a one-time payment of $70 and you're going to replay it a bunch of times. I don't know. For me, that's worth it.
I didn't include it in the show notes, but this does tie in pretty well to it in that $70, right? It could be make or break for a lot of people, especially for people about our age that remember games being $50 and a little bit cheaper, $60 and now $70. But Game Pass, Microsoft's Game Pass is that much more of an amazing deal, because some of these AAA titles, like the next Halo, the next Call of Duty, we know for sure, are probably going to be $70. Or you can get Game Pass, which is, I think, $15 right now. It's going to go up to $20 soon. $20 a month. And you get all those AAA titles, this library of games. And the news story I did not put in here is that Microsoft's Phil Spencer said that they've actually seen sales go down, physical sales and digital sales of their single title games because of Game Pass. Ever since they introduced Game Pass, the thing is, I don't know if you know how it works. Obviously, you know the pricing, but what they do is they go, the latest Halo, day one is on Game Pass. So you don't have to buy it $60. If you already have Game Pass, you can stream it or download it straight into your console. So that has cut down on sales. But I think it adds to the value of the service, because why spend $60 or $70 in this case? You spend $15, $20 a month and you can play the new Call of Duty.
How much are they paying you?
I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say that.
But I think you
not
bring
70 though.
I think you bring up a valid point, and I don't know if you've talked about it on this show, but we've seen it with streaming services for TV and movies, and now we're seeing streaming services essentially for games and how successful it is. And truthfully, I think they could probably raise the price point on that.
Game Pass?
Yeah.
Yeah, the rumors they're going to go up to 20. And it's still an incredible fucking
right.
deal.
I think they could raise it even more with the amount of people who are playing these games and cycling through them as quickly as they do. But the flip side, once they truly get to a space where they know their market and how many people are playing these games, right, then they're ultimately going to save costs by reducing, actually, I won't say printing the games because that's not the right word, but producing the physical copies of the game, because then you upload it and you're done.
Plus paying retailers to put up advertising in the stores, and you don't get a full cut of whatever you sell. I think it was like $12 per disc if it's a full title game back when I worked at GameStop.
Right.
And the GameStop would get $10 to $12, and everything else went to marketing, retail, all that, or to the companies, the game companies. But even now, like with that, like all joking aside, I've thought the whole time when Bobby was showing me Game Pass, when I was working with him on his phone, he brought it up. He's like, look, I can play from my phone, game like Halo or whatever.
Right.
And he was saying that I don't even need an Xbox anymore. You sign up for Game Pass, $15 a month. I can pull that up on my MacBook. And this is something that Maceo and Bobby were telling me. Sync up through Bluetooth an Xbox controller and play Halo on your computer.
That's insane.
On your television. If you have a Samsung TV, the app's in there. All you need is Game Pass, log in, and you have all those games on there. If Leo was a little bit older, he was still into gaming, it's like $20 a month and you have all these games. Have at it. That's it though. Just $20. None of this $70 shit.
It just makes so much sense though, because how often, and I guess it wasn't that often that I think about it, but there would be moments when you would buy a game and you would invest that $40 maybe on a game, and then you get it and you play it and you're like, oh, this is not as good as they said it did, but I'm out that money now, right? And with this, you don't have to worry about that, because you don't like it, you turn it off and you undownload it, you return it, whatever it is, and you download something else. So, or
you straight up download a demo. Like I downloaded the demo to Minecraft for Leo, and that was enough for him to be entertained for a little while. But back in our day, there were demos at the stores. You'd go into a Target or a Sears.
Blockbuster.
And they'd have the games there set up, and you can play them, you can try them out. Sometimes you'd get lucky and you'd get a disc in like a magazine that they'd sell, or sometimes they'd mail them out, or to your local Hollywood Video, GameStop, Funkoland. Do you remember those?
No.
It's what EB turned into, or I think GameStop turned into, whatever. Rhino Games was another one. And that's how we'd try out some of these games. And that was kind of the deal. But now you can, it's pretty amazing, the stuff you can do now and the options.
Right.
But another streaming service that is a part of the gaming world is Nintendo's. And they announced as a part of their latest Direct that a range of Game Boy games will be coming to that online service. So those are going to include Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. And this is a part of their higher priced expansion pack tier. Some of these games announced include The Legend of Zelda The Minish Cap, Link's Awakening, Gargoyle's Quest, Metroid 2 Return of Samus, Wario Land 3, and more.
You know what I didn't hear on that list?
Harvest Moon?
You're right. I didn't hear Harvest Moon.
Kirby?
Kirby is in there. I do like Kirby. No, the only games that matter.
Pokemon.
Where's Soul Silver? Best game they ever released. Come on.
Yeah, I don't think they put Soul Silver on there yet. Some of the older Pokemon games are available. You can download them, and you could even transfer your Pokemon into some of the newer games.
That's lame. I don't want to transfer my Pokemon. I'm just going to keep them.
Do you ever see the guy that transferred his old Ammonite and Amistar from Gen 1 all the way to, at the time, I think it was black and white?
No. How underpowered was it?
It didn't matter. Like, he's like, it's the same data from that old ass game.
It's the same thing. No, I will still stick forever by and say Heart Gold and Soul Silver are aside from like Yellow. I did really like Yellow. But when we talk about the remakes or further generations, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, best games they ever released. So good. Perfect blend of nostalgia, but also reinvention.
I agree with you. Heart Gold, Soul Silver, excellent games. How good were X and Y, though? That's like, that's quickly like my second or third favorite Pokemon game.
You just like that sweet story about the guy who lost his Pokemon.
If that was an X and Y, I don't know, but that's a big bonus. But I was referring to the fact that, I don't know if you remember, and we might have, I'm sure we covered it here on the show. That's how long we've been doing this podcast, is that I was like, man, they don't even give you a Bulbasaur. And then they announced that in the game, before it even released, that you can get the original 3 starters. You get to like the 4th town or whatever, go into a building. I forgot what you have to do, or if you just talk to someone and they're like, I've got these Kanto starters, pick one. So you get like 2 or 3 starters from some of the older generations in the game throughout it. So they were smart about it. That's when they were still trying to appeal to our generation as well as the newer kids. Now it's mainly kids, and I get it. That's fine. They've kind of put us to the side, and they'll release merch to us instead. But as far as the games, that was like the last time that I remember being like, oh shit, they did this for me.
They lost me in X and Y. I think that's when I really started to like fall off and be like, okay, this is too much. Because was it like the legendaries were really weird where they were an X and a Y, and I was like, I just can't get on board with this. They hooked me again with Let's Go Pikachu, which I thought was really well done and a lot of fun. But again, it's just pretty much redoing the old games, essentially. Yellow version, which is, I don't know, the best, right?
Yeah.
But that's also a game that Leo really enjoys because he can play it and he can run around and he can do whatever. So that was, yeah, I would say I really liked it up until Soul Silver. What was after that?
Silver is too. We
could go through the whole thing.
After that was Ruby and Emerald.
Ruby and Sapphire?
Yeah.
No, Soul Silver came out after that. It was Silver, and then it was...
I didn't know if you were referring to the actual timeline of like Silver.
Oh, no. Soul Silver. They did Heart Gold.
Probably Black and White then.
I feel like I played Black and White, and I started to fall off then, and then we had X and Y after that, and I was pretty much done after X and Y.
We haven't told that story in forever, but do you want to tell about the Pokemon kid?
So we used to go to a Pokemon League at the mall and play, and there was this very nerdy guy, and I wish him all the best. I hope he's doing well.
I saw him not too long ago
at
the card shop.
How did you remember him?
Because he looks the same.
I don't even think I know what he looks like.
He's this bigger guy. Yeah. He's got this beard. He's very recognizable.
Okay.
He's got a little plastic table that when he loses, he flips it.
Oh, no. I can't. Okay. Well, anyway, he's still around. I'm glad he's doing well. And somebody was asking him once what the difference was between or what the relationship was with Emerald and Ruby and Sapphire.
Was it that far ago, long ago? Because there wasn't a. After that, they didn't do it again, did they?
No, I don't think there was anything after that.
Because Black and White was Black and White 2.
Right.
And people kept thinking they were going to do Gray, but they didn't.
Right. So yes, that's the game that it was. It was a long time ago. We're old, but he stood up.
What's Pokemon Emerald?
Yeah.
That's what they kept asking.
And he stood up, and so the whole room, and it was a big room. The whole room could hear him. He goes, "It is what yellow was to red and blue, what crystal was to gold and silver. That is what Emerald is."
There was one more for sure. Now I know what you're talking about. So Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. There was definitely another one after Emerald because it was 3. I remember it being 3.
Diamond and Pearl.
Diamond and Pearl.
There you go.
But what was the middle one to Diamond and Pearl? Shit.
I don't remember. I wasn't great at that one either.
Platinum. It was
yes,
Platinum.
Yes,
what is Pokemon Platinum? It is what, and we would we made him redo it every time because then you and I would play this game of like, you would ask me or I would ask you, like, I'm not too sure what Platinum is though. Where does that fit into Pokemon? And then he would start from the beginning. It is what yellow was to red and blue was in every single time. And I think we got him to do it 4 times before he caught on.
Well, and even the last time he caught on, he was just kind of like, yeah, it's just kind of like the middle game. And I'm like, right, but like comparatively, like if you had to compare, and then he like went off again and I was like, this is great.
Oh man, I maybe I can get him again if I see him. If I ever happen to be at the card shop again and he's there during Pokemon League.
You will
I
have
never understood what Platinum was to all these games.
Right. He'll probably look at you like, really? Come on.
He won't recognize me. I've got a lot less hair. I got a beard now. Well, I do like it. I did like that this Nintendo news got us down memory lane for a little bit, but something that's been around longer than the podcast since I was, I think, in junior high school, was the start of the Fast and Furious films. And now it is the start of the end of the road, as the trailer says. And the latest one dropped for Fast 10.
You made one mistake. You never took my car.
See you soon, Dom.
Let's ride.
This one is set to release on May 19th. I gotta tell you, I was a little underwhelmed by the trailer because there's some cool shit that happens, but it is not on the level of fucking a plane catching maybe they're saving it for future trailers, but a plane catching a fucking car or a fucking car swinging off a bridge. Now, what did this one do?
Jumping between buildings. I mean, clearly, because this happens in real life, you can use grappling hooks from helicopters that have shot into you and just make them smash together and then you're fine.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Now, if they had put that in Fast 8, I would have been like, wow, that was an amazing fucking scene. But we've seen greater things in the Fast and franchise since then. So in the Fast franchise, even in Dom, I'm like, Dom, you've done way cooler shit than that. So I hope they save some really amazing stuff for the later trailers or even just for the movie. Either way, I'm going to go see it. I'm really happy with it. We own all the Fast and Furious films up until this latest one that's coming out. And I will be there opening weekend for part 1 of 2 of the finale of Fast and Furious.
There's going to be 2 movies?
Yeah, they filmed these back to back.
Got it.
And I think next year is when the final part comes out.
I think it's going to be great. I think, to your point, there's probably they have to know by now that this is what we're expecting. Like, we need to see all of these crazy ass things. And so they're not just going to put that all in the trailer. There will definitely be crazy things. I think we're going to see every character that we've known and fallen in love with this whole time, right? To be able to say goodbye to them. They better not say goodbye and drive off in cars in different roads because I'll cry. But we will definitely be there. We love this franchise. It's all about family. You have to be there.
Gal Gadot is even coming back in a flashback scene.
You'll see everybody.
They keep hinting at someone dying in this film. Obviously, they're not going to kill Dom in this one. Do you think he'll die in the final part?
No.
With his kid or Brian Jr.
No.
taking over as flash forward and he's a racer and they continue the next generation of Fast and Furious.
No, you can't kill Dom. We would all revolt. You can't do that.
Well, by the last movie, what are you going to do?
I feel like they should kill off his woman first. Get rid of her. Nobody cares.
Maybe, yeah.
And then he can be a single dad, raising Brian Jr. But especially because we genuinely lost half of the dynamic duo. You can't kill off the other half. No, I refuse to believe it. Vin Diesel wouldn't let that happen. He'd be like, Dom will never die. It's family.
Yeah, his ego's way too large for that to happen. He and The Rock obviously came to clashing. They don't get along.
Right.
They filmed these back to back. Do you think there's really no shot at all of The Rock being in part 2?
I really don't think there will be. I think,
agree.
You know, we have Jason Momoa, and I think they're trying to fill the void of The Rock with Jason Momoa, which
He's the villain.
okay, whatever. I could also see, what's his name, Brian, in the movie?
Yeah.
I could see maybe his wife dying, Dom's sister.
Mm-hmm.
I could see her dying. Anyway, I digress. I don't think we're getting The Rock.
What about Han?
But
Death really got you this time.
And then at the end, we see him like still alive. No, I think it'll be Dom's wife or Dom's sister. I think that's what we're going to see. You know, women power. It's 2023.
Sure. Did you buy Momoa at all in this as a villain?
0%.
It is weird. Why did they... Now, I get that this has a theme, right? Every time there's a villain, for the most part, they eventually become family. They show up at the barbecue at the end of the thing. And that's what I called on Twitter when Jason Momoa got cast. It's like, he's going to be at the barbecue at the very end. And Charlize Theron, I think, is still the big bad so far in these films. They used her a little bit in the last movie, but I think so far she's going to be the one that they really rely on to be the greater danger to all of them. Or maybe it will be family, like Dom's mom or something.
I think my biggest challenge with Jason Momoa is, like, he showed up looking all raggedy and stuff, as Jason Momoa does, which is fine. And then he's like, you killed somebody in my family, and I have access to all these things that are going to fuck up your life. And I'm like, but you look all raggedy. Like, maybe if you looked put together and like a mobster or something, but you just be looking raggedy. No.
Yeah, I don't buy that he has all these little plans or any of that.
He has control over all these helicopters, and he's just exploding shit and hacking
the least
things.
Believable part of these fucking movies.
Right.
Not all the crazy shit that happens.
Right.
Momoa.
But I also think we've seen that kind of character so many times, and again, it's worked for them, but it's not as impactful as, oh shit, like all this stuff is going down. It's like, yeah, we saw that before. Like, this what happens every time. And will we still be there day one? Absolutely. But we've seen this before. It's
going to do really well, especially as people realize that it's the final of the last couple Fast and Furious films before they spin them off or whatever they end up doing with them. I am still sad we're not getting that Jurassic World Fast and Furious crossover that was hinted at
that would have been so great.
And maybe they'll save it for the last one. I don't know. Same studio, I think, from what I understand. They could do it. They're cowards. Like, just fucking do it. Someone said it perfectly. They have to transport dinosaurs from point A to point B, and there's this other organization trying to stop them, and they got to be fast and they got to be furious to transport these Jurassic animals.
The best would be if you got Jeff Goldblum in there, and he's riding in the car with Dom, and you just hear him, must go faster.
Yes.
He's like, what are you talking about? He's got to look in the rearview mirror, and there's the T-Rex coming, the very silent T-Rex.
Yes, it always sneaks up.
Yep, coming after them. Ah, shit, that'd be so good.
Maybe that's the post-credit scene.
Make it happen.
Well, a company that's going to wish they had made that film because it's going to make a lot of money, and they're also hurting for money, is Disney. At its quarterly earnings call, Disney reported that Disney Plus lost 2.4 million subscribers, 2.4 million subs between October and December. In just 2 months of last year, they lost millions of subs. The Walt Disney Company is looking to cut approximately 7,000 jobs as part of an announced restructuring, representing slightly more than 3% of the company's workforce. So those layoffs will not be heavy in the theme parks. Those I know had a 13% increase in revenue. Instead, the deepest cuts are expected to happen in the entertainment and ESPN areas. To help scared investors, Bob Iger announced that there are sequels in development for Frozen, Toy Story, and Zootopia. Don't worry, we're going to make, and they will make millions off of Frozen 3, Toy Story 6, is it? 5? What are we at? 6?
5. And
Zootopia 2, which I know you and I enjoyed.
I enjoy Zootopia, but I'll get to my thoughts. You can finish.
Iger promised on the call by saying, quote, "We believe the work we are doing to reshape our company around creativity while reducing expenses will lead to sustained growth and profitability for our streaming business, better position us to weather future disruption and global economic challenges, and deliver value for our shareholders," end quote. He also called Hulu a very successful platform, quote, "and I think a good consumer proposition, but everything's on the table right now," end quote. So Hulu's up for grabs.
Listen, I do like Hulu. Hulu is a quality service. I enjoy Hulu.
Why do you like Hulu so much?
Because they're making the ACOTAR show.
Oh, okay.
They're making the show of my favorite book series, supposedly. I will say I can see, and I don't know if they really attributed it to anything, but I know that Disney Plus recently went through something where you had to submit the ages of each user, and that totally screwed over Leo's account.
Really?
Yeah, so of course we submitted his age accurately, and that's why he can't find Monsters, Inc., Cars. These are all things that are considered outside of his age, and we have to just go into a different account, and then he has access to more things.
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword because if they don't, then when they have stuff like Deadpool 3 on there,
Right.
then people, because I remember saying like, how dare they put that stuff on a family streaming service? But Monsters, Inc., like it's rated G, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or is it PG?
No, it's G.
If it's fucking rated G, then make it available to everyone. I mean, there's no toddlers and under fucking thing on there. G is the general audience. I don't think there's anything lower than G when it comes to films.
Even like HBO Max, you're able to go into your child's account and say, but I'm still okay with these things.
Nice.
And
that's how you do it.
Right. And then you can still select. So like Leo has a child's account on HBO Max, but can pull up Jurassic Park, right?
Mhm.
Because we've determined and agreed that this is what he's able to do. I haven't found a way to do that with Disney Plus. I've even tried to change his age so he can actually pull up his shows because he had his whole watch list. It's also cleared his watch list 3 times.
Shitty service,
Right.
shitty app.
Where it just disappears. I do like Zootopia. I think a Zootopia sequel will be good. I will appreciate a Zootopia sequel.
You know they're calling it can they do
Zootopia?
Zootopia?
They will. They'll call it Zootopia. It'll be fine. Frozen. Don't think we need it. Didn't see the second one. Don't care about the second one. Make a Frozen show. Like make a Frozen TV show, not a Frozen movie. Toy Story. Woody Dunn left them. What are we going to do now?
He left in the last one?
Yes, he stayed with Bo Peep.
Okay. All right.
He was gone. He was like, so long, partner. I'm going to stay with Bo Peep.
We need Woody. That's what's going to happen. And they're going to go back and visit him.
I don't think the only way.
He did confirm he's coming back. Oh, no. That's not Tom Hanks. I'm sorry. Buzz is, he confirmed that.
Tim Allen?
Yeah, Tim Allen.
Well, probably, but we don't have okay, 2 things. I say this one first. The only way that I would watch the Toy Story sequel is if Brittany from TikTok was in there. Romancing Woody. But the whole point of Toy Story, and I understand that it's a great franchise, and I feel like we've gone so far away from where it was, is that each Toy Story, if you really analyze the message in the toys, was a parent going through the transition of parenthood with her child growing up. That's what it was about. And so the first 3, you can very obviously see that. The first 2 for sure. But even the third one, right? You can see some pieces of that of, okay, my child's off to college. They're done with me. I can transition, right, into something else. And so as a parent, I really feel those emotions now when I watch those movies. And also they're great for kids. So that's part of the success. 4, I was like, I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know what's happening. So I don't think we need it. I'm going to protest. I'm not going to watch it. I don't it doesn't really matter. But I think they did this to themselves. The way they went through this whole thing where they updated the password. You had to update your password. And like I said, with that, the locks on the child's account where I can't just hand it to Leo. I have to go in and find his shows on a different account. And it's just a whole song and dance.
Well, no wonder they're losing subscribers. It's pretty amazing. And yeah, they are in a rough position. I know a lot of people were, I forgot what was on sale, which company had put themselves up, and there was speculation that Disney was going to buy them up, and it's like, they're not in a position to buy shit right now. And obviously you and I kind of have our fingers on the pulse a little bit more because of the parks and the people we know that work there. We're locals to Disney World, so we can kind of more or less determine how that company's doing from that. When they opened up that Star Wars hotel, oh man, that was...
Huge mistake.
Yeah.
Huge mistake. Well, even they're getting a lot of negative comments about the Tron ride.
Already?
Tron
Really?
just opened because the seats, if you're over a certain weight, are just not comfortable or safe. And so they're really eliminating a
good chunk of their
of business or people. I guess they all pay like a flat rate, right? But of their audience with the way they built the ride.
And I know that was done before Iger came back, but it continues that trend of them catering to international people who tend to not be as big as Americans. So
correct.
They like that money because they know they bring the Brazilians, especially bring a lot of money in here. That some Europeans, and they're not that big compared to some Americans.
Correct. And I mean, we could talk about it all day, right? But truthfully, when they changed the ability for locals and annual pass holders to be able to affordably go, they really shot themselves in the foot because, again, to your point, catering to people overseas, $134 for a child's ticket is just ridiculous to me. Makes absolutely no sense. And then you can't even get an annual pass to supplement that. So.
And that's why people like companies like Universal and SeaWorld step up. Like, you can get our annual pass for that much or whatever. So
SeaWorld's dirt cheap. They're like 2 payments of $30. Come back all year.
Come in. $30.
Come see Sesame
Too
Street.
Much, $25.
You know what? Drink a Pepsi. Come on in. Do you remember when you used to get discounts by drinking Pepsi?
Yes. I think it was Coca-Cola for us with Six Flags. But I always wondered why my dad would have these cans. And yeah, it'd be like $2 off per can or something like that. So for 4 of us, you'd get that discount on it and we'd go inside Six Flags.
Yeah, for us, I think it was Pepsi, but it was always Universal and Pepsi, or like Halloween Horror Nights and Pepsi. It was always linked. Good old days.
All right, let's get into the DC news for this week. First off, alleged pedo Gunn did debunk the rumor that George Clooney will be returning to the new DC Studios Batman on Twitter by saying, quote, absolutely not. New actor, end quote.
Very eloquent there, Gunn.
So for a few days there, though, it was amazing to see. Someone said on Twitter perfectly, like, now I've seen it all. These quote unquote real DC fans that are all on board with the Gunverse were saying when it seemed like he was coming back, Clooney, at the end of The Flash, or he's going to be that Batman in that Grant Morrison Batman Damian movie. They were like, well, he wasn't that bad a Batman. Like, even that movie itself, I mean, it's standard superhero. Like, they were defending
George Clooney?
Yes.
Are they
Batman
okay?
and Robin, George Clooney. And that's when we were like, y'all are fucking jokes. You will literally, they defend an alleged pedo. So, of course, they're going to defend George Clooney, who I think I would take George Clooney over, I'll watch a George Clooney performance than anything tied to Gunn.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, a few days there, it was just amazing the tap dancing that they were doing over literally anything. You can make up any fucking rumor, and they will have defended it if James Gunn was doing it. To the point, again, where James Gunn had to come out and say, no, that's not true. On a similar thread, alleged pedo Gunn responded on Twitter to someone asking him and Warner Brothers Discovery to sell Snyderverse to Netflix. He said, quote, I have to say, this has got to be the wackiest hashtag ever, since 1, Netflix hasn't expressed any such interest, although we've discussed other stuff. 2, Zach hasn't expressed any interest and seems to be happy doing what he's doing. And yes, we too have talked. He contacted me to express his support about my choices. He's a great guy. Again, he seems really happy with the massive world building he's doing now. End quote.
I like that he said that this is the wackiest hashtag he's seen and not pedoperv James Gunn or anything that calls him a pedophile.
Well, because that's not, he has hundreds of tweets saying that he clearly likes little kids.
Right.
I mean, it's clear as day, right? It's just amazing to me. This showed a lot of fear on the part of James Gunn, Safran, Warner Brothers Discovery. If our boycotting, our asking for the Snyderverse was not at all a threat, I would not address it if I were Gunn. I would completely be like, that's not even a threat to our movies. Right. Why does that even matter? I'm not even going to waste my time. He's on Twitter an awful lot, by the way, for someone who's running fucking DC Studios. And he's saying things like this and there's desperation in these tweets by saying, well, Zach, talk to me. And whether or not that's true, some people doubt that they spoke, some don't. Zach has been radio silent about this slate of movies. And if it were true that they did speak and Zach did, congratulate him. We know that Zach is extremely kind. He's he's very diplomatic when it comes to even people who have heard him at the studios. People that he has all the right to never speak to again or not be courteous to, he will still be kind to them. When Wonder Woman 84 came out, he spoke about how the film made him cry, especially at the end with Pedro Pascal and his kid and all that. So he was like, I'm a dad. Of course that made me cry. I'm not a monster, I think were his words. So he is willing to compromise or be fair with other filmmakers, maybe be a little more lenient with other filmmakers. That doesn't mean that he believes in their projects. This doesn't mean that he supports what they're doing. It doesn't mean that he's going, well, you go do that. I'm done. My time is, I'd rather not ever do anything DC. We have a ton of videos, evidence, tweets, Vero posts of him expressing very clearly that as soon as Warner Brothers Discovery, I think as soon as just as recent as a few months ago, that Warner Brothers, if they were to contact him to come back for Justice League 2 and 3, he would return, but that they haven't. He wants to finish his story. He has not told us to stop. At the moment, we are trending hashtag sell Snyderverse to Netflix at over 100,000 tweets, and it's still going. We've got hours to go. The demand is there, and it's because the demand is still there, because the fire still burns, that people like Gunn are very desperate and fearful. They know these movies are going to flop as soon as these couple movies, although there's this shiny object syndrome that I'm going to cover when the fucking Flash trailer comes out, so now I'm not so sure. But the more the true ones are fucking boycotting this shit.
All right, well, and we'll get into it, but even those who are distracted by what's shiny will soon come back to what's important. But yeah, you're 100% right. If they weren't threatened, if this wasn't something that could happen, then he wouldn't be commenting on it, right? He wouldn't be fueling that fire, and that's all that he's doing. He should just shut up and leave.
Get off Twitter, James. If all those fucking cancellations that you had over all your disgusting tweets weren't enough to get you off Twitter, I don't know how any PR person at Warner Brothers Discovery isn't saying, you have no social media, dude.
None. Not a single thing. You don't need
You're
it.
not responsible for that.
No.
As soon as you're off our contract, you can make your Twitter again.
Right.
But be like Snake Johns, Jeff Johns. He has not tweeted anything since I think the Doomsday Clock days. Because he kept getting a lot of people saying, you're a traitor, you're Judas, blah, 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 all that stuff. Rightfully so. You're a racist, everything. And I think that's what James Gunn should do as well. But let's talk about that trailer, the Super Bowl trailer for The Flush.
Oh. You are?
Yeah. I'm Batman.
It looked horrible.
I like that Maceo said it best, I think, in a way on Discord by saying all that money dropped on Super Bowl ads and they're never going to see any of that back.
Nope.
And I initially was like, you're right. But then I saw people's reactions online, on Twitter, on Facebook, in person, of people legitimately falling for one. The general audience sounds like they're somewhat on board with Michael Keaton coming back as Batman. Nostalgia is one hell of a drug. It did I think The Flash is going to do better than Black Adam. And it's a low bar. Let's be clear. Like, this is not a great feat, but I do think that it's going to be one of their more successful ones of recent years. I don't know if it'll hit any Snyderverse levels. I doubt it's going to hit $1 billion. I don't think it's going to get anywhere near there.
No.
I think Aquaman is probably still going to the first one. It won't reach that level, right? The Flash won't. But there was enough from, and you saw some of my posts on Instagram, some of you, of major accounts like RT Ayer Cut, which for years, right, were pro Ayer Cut. And yeah, they started asking James Gunn or whatever to restore or release the Ayer Cut. I don't know, whatever. It went through phases, but even they were saying, and I saw this from a bunch of mutuals, and I cleaned my timeline. I was like, all right, unfollow from people that were saying, this is the last movie that contains Snyderverse characters or Snyderverse actors. We need to support them if we want any chance of seeing any kind of Elseworld shit. And that sounded an awful lot like, buy Justice League on Blu-ray to show them that we want the Snyder Cut. If we have strong sales for Justice's version, Joss Whedon's, then maybe they'll consider Snyder's, which was absolute bullshit. Then they said the same thing about Black Adam. If we want more Henry, we got to support Black Adam. If we want Snyderverse, we need to support Black Adam. And this is where I called out RT Ayer Cut, because they were saying it didn't work with Black Adam and it won't work with The Flash if we boycott it. So we need to do the opposite and support it. It's like, no, we don't. This is the movie that goes back into fucking Man of Steel and ruins it, tries to ruin it.
Right.
Erases the Snyderverse or Hamadaverse, whatever you want to call it right now. They couldn't leave Zack's movies alone. At first, it was like, okay, you're in the Justice League universe. Fine, go make your shitty fucking movies. But now they're going back into Man of Steel, and they're fucking it up. They brought back Michael Shannon, and they oversaturized it, and they changed the events. And I don't give a shit if these are spoilers, because fuck this movie, and and you shouldn't see it. But Henry Cavill dies when they launch him up in Krypton. Zod shoots down his fucking ship. There's no baby Cal, and instead it's Supergirl that makes it on Earth. Gets found by the government, gets put away, kind of like Flashpoint, I guess. And Michael Keaton and the Flash bring her out, and she's the Superman of this universe, stops Zod, does not kill Zod. So this is Hamada and Emmerich back when they had these plans, because this movie was done. This is their script of, let's rewrite the Snyderverse Man of Steel, where she doesn't kill Zod. That was a big controversy. And we'll replace Henry Cavill, who's very expensive right now, with Sasha. She's a lot cheaper. And we're going to have that be the Supergirl. We'll have our Batgirl. Michael Keaton's going to be the Batman, Nick Fury person or whatever. And now the Snyderverse is fixed with what we want it to be. And the only tweak that has happened, because all of that is still happening, is there was a tweak that when Zaslav took over, of they weren't going to kill off Henry Cavill. Instead, the Flash undoes it. And they weren't going to kill off Ben Affleck, because Ben Affleck dies fighting Michael Keaton, believe it or not.
Okay.
In the original script, he dies fighting old man fucking Keaton, because one's arguing over, no, we need to preserve the old world. And that was an allegory for the Snyderverse fan base. And Keaton going, no, we need to save the new world or whatever, merge them. And as they're fighting, Ben Affleck gets caught in the time stream and he dies. Well, Zaslav changed it. They did another reshoot where one of the post-credit scenes is Ben Affleck stuck in the Flash
Speed Force?
The Speed Force. And like in BVS, he reaches out to Barry and says, find me, Barry. And that's how they preserve Ben Affleck, and they're going to use him in future films. And instead they get rid of Keaton. But now it's been rewritten again to where Henry's probably still going to die now. Ben Affleck will probably still die because they're going with a new Batman. So they're reverting some of these plans. And the Flash running through and merging the universe, creating a new universe, they are making into canon the Reeves universe, the TV series. Like, they existed in a way. There's little Easter eggs, but then it's all going to lead into the James Gunn universe. Some of these characters are still going to be there, like Amanda Waller, Jason Momoa, some of these other, and then they're going to recast. But it all reboots into James Gunn's universe, and that's the future of the DC universe.
Sounds real shitty.
And we knew all of this was happening. The only reason I'm repeating it is for, like, longtime Burketts are like nodding, like, yep, nope, yep, that all checks out. Of course, that's happening. You've heard all of this. But to anyone that's like, why? Because I've seen this. Daniel, people have asked me, friends, but Ben's back. Isn't this what you wanted? But it's like, you don't get it.
Not this way.
You don't
Never
understand.
this way.
So the Flash suit looks fucking terrible. I have little bullet points. Someone said he looked like a fucking Q-tip.
I could, but even the very first time you see him in this trailer, it's like, what kind of 2008 CGI are we using?
Thank you.
It looks horrible. People
were pointing out Man of Steel, which is 10 years old now, that CGI somehow still holds up. It's beautiful. Way better than most of these fucking movies now.
I would argue 1994 Jurassic Park CGI looks
100%.
better. Looks better than this.
Ben Affleck's new suit, I don't know what the fuck they were doing. They gave him the bat bra. He's got a little bra he's wearing now, and he's got the straps on his leg. What do you call those? The corsets? The garters? And I know they put garters on Batman in the comics and everything, but it doesn't look right on Ben Affleck's. That's the Dark Knight Returns Batman, right? That's the Batman that they established. And now he's all blue and gray and shit, super colorful, weird looking. What the fuck is this, man? The thing that looked even worse than that, though, was Michael Keaton's. And that's the one that people are, like Bobby called him their golden goose or whatever. And he's right. A lot of nostalgia is going to lead to a lot of sales. But when I saw that, I'm like, this is fucking terrible. When he comes up to the camera and they shoot, whoever shot, I forgot the director's name, but they don't shoot this at all in a flattering way for any of these fucking actors. They do this, the worst thing you can do with the cameras is film from down underneath your face, from your chin up. They did that with Michael Keaton when he holds his little fist up. They did that with Supergirl when she's doing her fucking cringy super eyesight shit and when she's yelling. It looks fucking terrible. We've screenshotted this trailer like crazy. Like, this is the shit you guys are going to go fucking see. That's the movie that's going to erase the Snyderverse, is going to lead into DC Studios. That's what they're hedging their bets on. And when he says, Michael Keaton's like smiling practically, and he's saying, I'm Batman. I'm like, okay, so now you've even changed the Michael Keaton Batman. And I get that he's lighter than the Ben Affleck one that they had in BVS, but he wasn't this fucking shit that they did here. He wasn't like that video gamey pseudo Arkham Asylum thing they were trying to do. It's like he never moved like that in those old fucking movies. You're not even honoring the Tim Burton universe.
Right. They're just trying to feed off, like you said, that nostalgia, right? And just be like, oh yeah, look, come and see him. Like, he's here. It's what you want, right? It's what you remember.
He even looks like he's phoning it in. Like he made a whole movie about not wanting to be Batman. Remember Birdman?
I do remember. If the paycheck was right, he was like, I guess. Sure.
He's probably getting paid more now than he did after Birdman. His career really like took off again. Like, not that he was ever in the tubes or whatever, but he wasn't making the money that he is now. I don't think. I don't know what he got paid for Batman or for the Spider-Man films.
Right. He was so good at, like, that was such a great twist. I was like, oh my God. Wow.
Good on him for getting that paycheck, but he doesn't give a shit. No. Like, he was asked last year too about, so do you have any other appearances after Batgirl got canceled? He's like, I don't know what's going on over there. Like, he doesn't care.
Right. I will even say, and I get that we're trying to, woman power 2023, but
talk about Supergirl.
She looks horrible. Like, when you think about Supergirl, and I think one of the really great things that I appreciate about the character is if she doesn't look inherently strong, right? She doesn't look like she's gonna go save the world and beat something up. She just looks like your girl next door, which was, the whole Clark Kent thing too, right? But then she turns into this super powerful person that goes and can save the world. And that's not what you get from this character that we see. And granted, I recognize that she's been locked up for forever and things are different, but I don't know, like the hairstyle I was just very confused. I was like, this doesn't even look like something. I feel like if you're going to have a superhero, your audience should want to emulate them in some aspect. And that is not what I get from this character at all.
And I know I can't speak too much on it because being a man, but I felt like, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw more power in the women that were introduced, even just letting Wonder Woman, even if you don't give me Wonder Woman from BVS, which was an incredible debut. It got people excited.
That was so good.
People loved it. She wasn't in that movie that long, and people kept talking about how wonderful she was. But even if you don't give me that, Lois Lane from Man of Steel BVS, Feora from Man of Steel, when she's taking on Clark and fighting the general, that I'm like, they have a thing going on, right?
Yeah.
The woman at the trial who ended up, I guess, being sort of a villain in a way, but in BVS, when she's talking about the village that was supposedly destroyed by Superman, Martha Kent going through her journey of losing her. Like, there's so many of these stories that I feel like women could relate to or look up to or feel empowered by. And somehow they can't do that with a super powered character like they still fuck it up with Supergirl.
And I guess that brings up a lot of great points that I'm thinking of. And I feel like, probably going to make somebody mad, this was definitely written by a man who said, okay, we need somebody, a tough woman, right? A strong woman. And so she has to look tough.
Well, so were the other characters, though. A bunch of the other characters were written by Goyer and Zack Snyder.
Well, they understand women better than whoever wrote this.
I agree.
But typically, and maybe you can totally correct me if I'm wrong, but from a masculine point of view, if you think of someone strong, you think of tough appearance, right? Lots of muscles, kind of that air about them, right?
Steadfast.
I mean, yes, all that, but kind of that like air about them. I can't really put it into words at this time, right? But I think the wonderful thing about women is that women can be strong even when they're not those things, right? They don't have to have a lot of muscles. The strength from women comes from the mental aspect, right? And I can overcome anything, and I'm strong because I'm a woman and because I can do all these things. And that's what women relate to. I don't look at someone who is what they depicted and said, great, I can be that. I can be strong like that. Like, that's not The great thing about Wonder Woman, yes, she was strong and she did all this training, but she was still someone that I could relate to, right? She was still soft in other ways, and there's no softness about this character at all, which is not typically what women relate to.
And granted, we haven't seen this, and we won't be seeing the movie, so I don't know what they're going to do with Supergirl. Maybe she ends up being, if you were to see it, maybe they do that, but the track record is awful. I don't have any confidence in that being the case with Supergirl. I doubt she's going to be anywhere near what these other women were in Man of Steel or in these other films. And if they drag back Fiora too, like, that's another shame, man. I love Michael Shannon as a villain, and they brought him back, like, goddamn. And now if they do that with Fiora, like another character that they, I say ruin, but this is not, it sucks that I have to say this is not canon for me because they're going back and changing canon, but it's like, fuck this movie. I've got mine, and we're fighting for a different timeline. That's the deal. That's where our money is going. That's where our attention is going, not to this shit. And I originally had the date on, fuck the date. Like, fuck this movie. And there's a lot of clarity on who gets what this boycott's about and who doesn't. Who understands that, who's been there since we first started fighting for some of these movies, 2015, 2016, for fighting for different cuts of BVS or Justice League, that understand what a boycott is and why supporting the shit that's erasing your fucking movie, your universe, doesn't work. You will not get back. However well this does, however well Blind Adam did, the Snyderverse was never on the table.
Right.
It was never well, if this makes $1 billion, fine. Well, that is not even an option.
And the reality is, they're going to look at it very black and white and say, oh, this movie made a lot of money. They want more of this. And what I mean by more of this is not more of the characters that are going back to the Snyderverse. It is more of this lighthearted, terrible CGI. Michael Keaton characters nobody cared about, lazy writing.
They like the movie that erased the Snyderverse. That's how they're going to view it.
Exactly.
Feels good to do that. It feels like a cleansing to shit on that movie.
Some therapy.
And I renewed the reasonsImbroke.com for another year.
Good.
So it's going to be another year, as I said on Twitter, of celebrating the gems that we do have outside of whatever it is that Warner Brothers Discovery is doing. Fighting for things like the Snyderverse, but also still enjoying, as we talked about earlier, talking about gaming, comic books, superheroes.
Fast and Furious.
Not all Fast and Furious, that's right. It's not all, thankfully, this shit. But this shit is fun. Let's go into our Patreon comment this week from Adrian, who referred to last week's episode by saying, quote, "Let Millennial Mike know that we aren't living in the Matrix. We're living in the nightmare timeline." That's true. Regarding Pedal Gun Slate, of course I am not excited for it, especially Brave and the Bold. He likes Damian Wayne Robin. Well, good for him. Doesn't mean I am going to support him. Let me stop there. Do you give a shit that Gunn, like that we're getting a Damian movie? I know you like Damian.
But Gunn's on board with it? No.
Right.
It's going to be horrible.
Quote, "It's funny that he's going to bring an adult, older Batman as dear old dad. But weren't people complaining about Batfleck being old? Where does the hypocrisy stop?" Well, they're doing that now with Keaton, too. Like, that's great, 70-year-old Batman. But Ben at his 50s is too old. In regards to his comments about continuity or whatever he said, Zack had a continuity and he had a cohesive plan. Snake Johns ruined that plan and continuity. David Ayer himself said that Johns broke his continuity. That's how we got Studio Squad. I just want the Snyderverse completed so that I can go back to the time when I didn't care for superhero films. End quote. That's very similar to what Millennial Mike was saying too, where he said something like he was a Marvel fan and then Zack Snyder made a movie. You know?
I love it.
And he was like, holy shit, this is like cinema for superhero film. And people are saying, like, even if he never, like, we never deserved Zack.
Right.
It's one of those things, like, all these movies we didn't deserve after all the shit that he went through and that he continues to go through. Very good comment, Adrian. Much appreciated. If you too would like to support us on Patreon, please head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimbroke. Very much appreciate the comments and all of our backers at Patreon. Let's head into the final segment of this week's episode of the Brokehead Block. What Palpa, Kelly, and I have been up to since you last heard us.
It's been a while since they last heard from me. I am very pregnant.
Still?
Still very
You're the
pregnant.
most pregnant you've been all year.
The most pregnant. That is a great way to put it. I am just over 8 months pregnant. 7 months. Sorry, just over 7 months pregnant.
I was like, what month is this? March?
I know. I was like, what? Where are we? Just over 7 months pregnant. Very tired. Very large. Very
and in
hungry.
charge.
And I don't know about in charge, but very tired of being pregnant. So I'm reaching that third trimester stage where, and anybody who's maybe had a significant other or someone close to them go through this, the last 2 months are really the hardest. They feel like the whole 9 months, just because of, and we've talked about this a little bit, but the amount of weight, right? There's 20 extra pounds just sitting on my lower back, and trying to navigate that, and kicks to the bladder. And listen, second babies are just different. You just carry them differently, and you've gotten to listen to all my grumbling, and I appreciate you for just listening and taking it, but very tired, but we're excited. We're close to the end of the journey, and I know it'll be here before we know it. Beyond that, my life is just work and taking care of the kid that we have and trying to grow the kid that we're bound to have.
Yeah, I totally accept that your body's going through hell. Going through a lot. I will say, though, that so far, I am grateful, though, that we haven't had any major complications with Sophia, that everything is on track so far up to this point. Even when I sent out my email about my paternity leave in April, I was like, if all goes well, because I got to remind myself that it's not a given that anything's going to go according to plan, not just with Sophia, but with even having a job or anything, being around.
Right.
So it's one of those things that, all right, cool. Things are okay. You know what I mean? Like, even though there's some challenges, but these are challenges I will take over some previous ones or some that other people are going through. The fact that I can whine about the Flash and get this worked up about it, like, I'm like, all right.
We're in a good place. Yes. And to your point, things are great with her. Definitely had some challenges with heartburn and nausea and different things like that. But I do have a fantastic doctor that, I email her and I'm like, hey, this is my problem. And I have a prescription 10 minutes later. Like, it's very hard to find care like that. I don't know how much I shared on the show. When I was pregnant with Leo, I had a lot of challenges with my blood pressure when I was pregnant with him, and still have some challenges, but have been able to control it a little bit better and make sure that it's in a decent place, so that hopefully we don't have to induce and go through that. And I attribute a lot of that to the job that I have, right? I work with a great team that's very supportive and understanding of things that I need in the moment, where if I'm like, hey, I need to go sit down for 5 minutes, or, absolutely go and do that. And I still enjoy going into work. Like, am I tired? And some days I wake up and I'm like, I wish I could just stay home today. Sure, but I still enjoy going into work. And Leo's at a great age where he can support me too. And he sees I'm not feeling well and he's rubbing my back and he's like, it's okay, mommy. Like, you'll feel better soon. And I'm like, oh, my baby. And then I'm crying and it's the whole thing.
I think by the next time you'll be on, you'll be right at the cusp of having Sophia.
Oh my goodness.
And then after that, she'll be about a month old next time after that, once you're on, maybe a month and a half. So you're going to hear the journey if all continues on. It's not the end of any journey. Like you were saying earlier. Like, it's not though. It's starting.
So if it's right before I have her next time, I'm going to be like, I'm done. I'm done. I've just now reached the point where like my feet are starting to swell, like sitting here doing this show. My feet are like, nope, we're not about this. So
you're keeping some food down though, more than before at least.
We're trying. It's tough. The prescription that I have from my doctor helps a lot, but it was, and I know I shared this on here last time I was here, but it was probably a solid 6 months of nausea and like losing everything every day. And that was very challenging. So yes, I'm glad that we're in a better place. I still have to be really, really careful. If I stray too far from the foods that I know will stay down, then I'll be sick for 3 days.
So that's your Palpa Kelly update with Sophia now.
Yeah.
And we did we're not going to talk specifically about football, but we did see some of the Super Bowl. And for the end credits and jingle. After the jingle, I want to talk about some of our favorite Super Bowl commercials, maybe this year or in previous years. But I do want to end it by talking about, I don't know if I've mentioned it, but I do like a lot of Rihanna songs, and she was the Super Bowl act or whatever you want to call it, the main event,
show.
The halftime show. Is that
the
what
main event?
The seventh inning.
It was the Rihanna concert with Rihanna concert with football around it.
Yeah, there you go. And we were watching that live, and that was fucking good.
Mm-hmm. And we joke about it, and it's very true because you pointed out during the show, you're like, oh, she's pregnant. And I was like, she just had a baby. We can't be like commenting on her body. Maybe she just didn't bounce back. And then, of course, they did announce that she is pregnant. So good for her. I'm very happy for her. But now I feel even more connected because she and I are pregnant at the same time.
Right.
Also, Meghan Trainor's pregnant too. So it's like I'm one of these celebrities. Not that like I'm the same age as them or anything. They're just...
If you run into them, you have something to talk about.
Right. So I could be like, oh, hey, I'm pregnant too. And
We're like
she'll
besties
be like, okay. Best buds. But it was, and I will say maybe not quite as dynamic as other shows that I've seen, but also understanding that she did that while pregnant after being only 9 months postpartum. Like, good on you, girl. That's wild. And then somebody pointed out, I saw a video on it, that literally the whole thing, even down to the music that she chose and the way that she performed, was literally somebody going through a relationship and the sperm going to impregnate her.
So it was actually that?
That's what a lot of people are saying.
That makes sense.
And then if you go through, like if you look at all the songs, it starts out very independent and then going into a relationship and then breaking up and then going long term, and you end with diamonds, obviously, forever.
I'm going to have to, like, this is a halftime show I'm going to save as my favorites on YouTube. Something I'll rewatch. Her greatest hits, she performs for a few seconds, some redones. I don't accept any fucking criticisms that I saw from this Super Bowl. Like, someone saying, well, too bad she was lip syncing. She was not lip syncing. She had a background track. Right. But she was not you can hear her live voice when she was singing. And like you were saying, like people expected her to be fucking flipping and dancing and all the shit. And then it's like, even when she's pregnant, I don't think so. Right. And I didn't accept that either. Even if she wasn't pregnant, like you were saying, how long had it been since, like, it takes a while for the body to come back, heal back?
A long time.
She's older now.
Yeah. So I was reading up a few articles. She accepted this when she was only 3 months postpartum. I'm going to tell you, 3 months after you have a baby, like, you still barely feel human. And so for her to accept it, because as soon as she accepts it, right, then she's starting to do all these things. But for her to also get pregnant back to back, I knew somebody who her kids are 12 months apart, 13 months apart, something like that, right? 2 kids back to back. So she pretty much had a baby, got pregnant 3 months later, which is about what Rihanna has done, right? And that was horrible. Like, she was on bed rest for 6 months of her pregnancy because it was just so challenging on the body to do that. So even to understand that's what she's going through, and she still got up on stage and moved as much as she did, I would have been standing on that floating platform all day, just like, here I am, I'll sing for you, I'm not moving. Sit on a couch and sing it. Like, good on her.
A halftime show not to be missed, that's for sure. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But Palpa Kelli, I want to thank you, the original host for this show, for being on and helping host this week. Not really a place they can find you these days, right? Not anymore?
Nope. I
So they'll next hear about you in a month and a half.
Yes. I really don't spend a lot of time on social media anymore. I think it was a big part of my life at one point, and I've just reached that part of my life where I don't have time, right? I have limited time, and rather than spend it posting and interacting with people, I spend it watching Cars for the millionth time, and I still read my smutty books. Okay, we're still there. Or, watching videos and just kind of disconnecting for a little bit, and still pushing hard towards my career. So that takes up a lot of my time too. So see y'all at some point.
Well, if you do have a question or comment specifically for Palpa Kelli, you can always tweet it to me, friend and you, Brokettes. I am her husband, so I can just yell at, hey, Kelli.
Surprise! Surprise, he's my husband.
This person's asking this.
That's about how it goes. Speaking of talking about husbands and relationships, I was working today and there was all this buzz around Valentine's Day, and people like, oh, what's everybody doing? And, oh, my boyfriend planned this big elaborate thing. And they looked to me, this, Kelli, what are you doing? I said, after you have kids at a certain point, it's, you brought me chocolate, which was so special. And I was like, and I'll go to bed early. So it'll be a great Valentine's.
Like I said, I was going to bring you flowers, but we just celebrated our anniversary. So I'm like, I don't know if she'd like that as opposed to like the chocolates there's a story behind the chocolates, the Dove chocolates that I brought her. So I'm like, I think that'll be more meaningful, even though like the flowers from Leo and I were good for our anniversary, but it's just, they're so close together, aren't they?
They are.
Anniversary, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day's coming up.
Birthday.
And then your birthday.
Well, but also my birthday.
Oh yeah. And then
you got to get me something for my birthing day. I require gifts. It's a lot of work.
You're going to want to eat as soon as you're done.
I'm going to drink coffee as soon as I'm done. Similarly to when I was pregnant with Leo, I just woke up one morning and hate coffee. And longtime broquettes know that is tragic in my life. Tragedy.
Well, thank you once again, Palpa Kelly, for being on, and to you on the other side for joining us for this episode, whether it's your first or 549th. If you enjoyed the show and you want to support us, we do have monthly costs that include uploading the show, leveling the show, Alphonic, promoting the show, and all of that costs money. We head on over to Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/thereasonsimebroke for as little as $1 or $2 per month, you too can support the show. But thank you once again. I've been Daniel, joined by Palpa Kelly and Broquette Core. All will be well. So people kept talking about Ben Affleck's Super Bowl commercial. It outtrended the Flash trailer. On YouTube, it was the #1.
I loved it. It was hilarious.
The Flash trailer was like number 10 or some shit. Completely blew it out of the water. That's what he was doing working at Dunkin'. People kept asking, like, what was he doing working at Dunkin'? And I chalked it up to, well, he clearly loves Dunkin' Donuts. Like, that's the big deal. Like, it's just a big, it's a fun thing for him to do. I didn't know he was actually filming.
It was hilarious. I loved that commercial. I think my favorite part was when J-Lo pulls up too, and she's like, what are you doing? Like, come on, get in the car.
So this is what you mean by you're going to work?
Absolutely hilarious. I love that at least it appeared that they did it with actual customers, right?
Yep.
Had him interacting with actual customers, which for them, how exciting. But then you get those real authentic interactions. And as someone who works for a coffee chain, just like seeing those kind of things, I'm just like, I wouldn't hire you, Ben. I wouldn't, but
that was like a Boston
try.
Dunkin' though.
No, I mean, maybe in a Boston Dunkin'.
Or any Dunkin'. I know how you feel about Dunkin'.
Yes, we all know how I feel about Dunkin'. But I just thought it was so funny. It totally makes sense. I saw a few people on my Facebook where they're like, oh, this was my favorite commercial. And I was like, it was well done. And yes, they had to pay for Ben, but realistically, they didn't really have to spend that much money on that commercial to get as much traction as they did.
Do you remember the Toads, the Budweiser frogs?
Yes.
Oh man, that was a classic. What was funny about that is I don't know if they were allowed to advertise anymore since then, but that resonated a lot with kids even, where kids were like, Budweiser. On our old Windows Hewlett Packard computer, we downloaded a screensaver that you put, I forgot what the letters were, the keys, but each time you hit one, it'd be each frog saying Budweiser. And it's like the 90s, man. You could
get away
market
with
this shit to kids and it'd be okay. You can't do that now.
The other one, and I'm pretty sure it was beer, was a What's Up. Do you remember that one? And everybody was calling and it was a beer commercial. I had
first heard that one on that Scary Movie. And that's where they parodied it. And I thought that's what it came from. But it was that Super Bowl commercial. Yep. I found out later on.
I remember that one. I was surprised there wasn't, and I didn't see all the commercials, so I don't know, right? We're in the age where you just fast forward. They always have like that one touching one that you cry during, and I didn't see that one this year.
I think it's because last year there was a lot of sad Super Bowl commercials, and they got a lot of flack for it.
Probably.
Like I think it was Nationwide that did the one where the kids like, it was an insurance one of I never grew up because I died.
Oh
and
my
they had
God.
all this shit like a TV falling on a kid or something.
Oh, no.
And they were like, yeah, I don't think we're gonna do that for an event where people are having fun with friends and family trying to watch a fucking game.